In 1962, Modesto, California, served as the backdrop for what would become a legendary movie, American Graffiti. However, the film nearly never came to life due to chaos behind the scenes, near-death incidents, and intense production struggles. Despite all the odds, this film made stars, reshaped the future of cinema, and still remains a beloved piece of Hollywood history. Before American Graffiti, George Lucas was an unknown director with only one film, THX 1138, to his name. His reputation didn't inspire much confidence in the studio. When Lucas pitched American Graffiti to Universal, the executives gave him a modest budget and very little creative freedom. He wanted to break traditional filmmaking rules, using long takes, overlapping dialogue, and naturalistic shots to create realism, things that confused the studio. They didn't trust him, and halfway through the shoot, they considered firing him. It wasn't until legendary filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola stepped in, threatened to buy the film himself, and supported Lucas that the production was allowed to continue. Without Coppola's protection, American Graffiti might have never seen the light of day. As filming continued, more problems arose. The studio feared the movie was too white, given the story's setting in Modesto, a predominantly white town. One executive reportedly asked Lucas, "Where are the black people?" They thought the film wouldn't appeal to a broad audience without adding African-American characters and soul music. Lucas stood firm, arguing that the story was about a specific time and place, and that Modesto in 1962 simply didn't have that kind of diversity. He refused to compromise, and in the end, his authenticity paid off. The film went on to have a massive crossover appeal, appealing to people across all walks of life. Filming was also a grueling ordeal. Every single scene was shot between sunset and sunrise, meaning the crew followed an inverted schedule for 28 consecutive nights. The cast began working at 6 p.m. and wrapped up by dawn. This unconventional schedule took a toll on the cast and crew. Many became ill from lack of sleep, and even the cameraman, Haskell Wexler, dropped out due to exhaustion. Ron Howard, who played Steve, described the experience as living in a vampire movie. The night shoots added to the film's atmosphere but almost broke the team working tirelessly to make it happen. To get the real feel of cruising down the strip, Lucas made the cast live like their characters. He told them to drive their real hot rods around Modesto and San Rafael in character. Richard Dreyfuss, who played Kurt, had to act nervous and insecure even off-screen, while Harrison Ford, playing the rebellious Bob Falfa, cruised around town in a '55 Chevy, blaring rock music. The locals, unaware that they were watching actors, thought they were real troublemakers. Lucas wanted the cast to bond with the cars and each other, making sure the actors truly felt their roles before the cameras started rolling. But the filming wasn't all smooth sailing. Harrison Ford, cast as Bob Falfa, wasn't Lucas's first choice. In fact, Lucas initially passed on him because he didn't want professional actors. Ford, however, showed up at the audition with a cowboy hat and exuded raw attitude that Lucas couldn't resist. Still, Ford didn't take the role too seriously. He often showed up drunk before filming, admitting later that he was drunk in every scene he shot. But that unpredictable energy worked. His performance as Falfa was magnetic, unpredictable, and full of swagger, making his character one of the film's most memorable. One of the most iconic elements of American Graffiti is the yellow '32 Ford Deuce Coupe driven by John Milner. What's fascinating about this car is that it wasn't some perfect show car. It was a wreck found in a junkyard. The production team discovered it rusting away, rebuilt it, and turned it into the stunning car seen in the film. It didn't have seat belts or air conditioning, and it barely passed California's road safety inspection. But after the movie, the car became iconic. It's now considered one of the most famous movie cars ever. Suzanne Summers, who played the mysterious blonde in The White Thunderbird, almost had her single line cut. The line, "I love you," was a subtle moment in the film, but the studio thought it was too vague. Lucas fought to keep it in, arguing that the character's mystery was key to her power. Ironically, it was that lack of dialogue that made her character unforgettable. and the scene became one of the most iconic moments in the film. Ron Howard, another central figure in the movie, was initially hesitant to join. He was known as Opie from The Andy Griffith Show and didn't want to be typecast. But Lucas convinced him, pitching the film as a poem about growing up. Howard agreed, but insisted that his character, Steve, be portrayed with more subtlety. Howard helped rewrite some of his lines, making Steve more grounded and nuanced. It was this performance that helped launch his career, and years later, Howard credited American Graffiti with helping him break free from his past roles. But American Graffiti wasn't all fun and games. One of the most dangerous moments came when Richard Dreyfuss's character Kurt was supposed to jump into a moving car. The stunt went wrong, and Dreyfuss slipped, almost going under the rear tires. Crew members screamed in panic, but Dreyfuss was lucky to walk away with only a bruised hip. The incident was reshot with a dummy for the wide-angle shots, but it added a layer of authenticity and danger to the reckless youth culture depicted in the film. Before it became American Graffiti, the film was almost called Another Quiet Night in Modesto. George Lucas loved the title, but Universal hated it. They thought it was too boring and wouldn't sell tickets. After rejecting several other suggestions, American Graffiti was chosen as the new title. Lucas reluctantly agreed, and in hindsight, he later called it one of the best decisions he never made. The title perfectly captured the film's rebellious, chaotic energy, and it became one of the most memorable titles in movie history. Paul Lamar, who played John Milner, had a notorious temper. During a break in filming, he got into a real fight with another cast member, allegedly breaking the person's nose. The fight was hushed up, but it caused serious tension on set. Lamott's volatile energy was evident in his portrayal of Milner, and it made his character all the more believable. But it also created a high-stakes, tense environment on set, where any spark could turn into an explosion. Filming in San Rafael, California was also a logistical nightmare. The sound of revving engines and loud rock music kept the locals awake at night, prompting multiple police calls. Eventually, the city revoked the filming permit, and the production had to move locations. Lucas and his team had to renegotiate filming permits nearly every day, making it a constant struggle just to stay on track. Ironically, the police in the film, who are portrayed as ineffectual and out of touch, were also part of the chaos behind the scenes. The soundtrack of American Graffiti is one of the defining aspects of the film, but securing the rights to the music was a costly challenge. At the time, music licensing wasn't standardized, so the production team had to negotiate with every artist and publisher individually. The total cost of securing the music rights was more than the entire $777,000 production budget, but Lucas insisted that the music had to be original 50s and 60s rock and roll songs, and the gamble paid off. The soundtrack became a star in its own right, contributing to the timeless appeal of the film. George Lucas, who had a unique way of telling stories, didn't want any opening credits. Universal, however, pushed back, wanting the traditional credits to be at the beginning of the film. After some back and forth, a compromise was reached. The credits would roll after the opening diner scene, giving the audience a moment to be immersed in the world of the film before seeing any names. This approach became one of Lucas's trademarks and later influenced films like Star Wars. Before Cindy Williams became a TV star with Laverne and Shirley, she played Laurie in American Graffiti. Early on, Lucas was concerned that Williams' comedic timing would upstage the other characters. At one point, he even considered recasting her, but ultimately, the subtle adjustments she made to her performance turned her into one of the film's emotional anchors. Laurie's performance highlighted the complex transition from youth to adulthood, making her one of the most memorable characters in the film. The epilogue of American Graffiti, which reveals the fates of each character, was actually shot before the rest of the movie. Lucas, fearing that the film might be canceled before completion, filmed the epilogue first. The powerful and shocking ending, where one character dies in Vietnam, brought a dose of reality to what had been a carefree film about youth, adding an emotional punch that surprised audiences. One of the most shocking incidents occurred during a drag race scene when Harrison Ford's car caught fire for real. The engine overheated and flames shot up through the hood. Fortunately, fire extinguishers were on standby, and the fire was put out quickly. The team decided to keep the footage of the fire in the final cut, adding a sense of realism and raw energy to the climax of the film. Lucas, who worked with a tiny budget, often shot American Graffiti without permits. The crew would film guerrilla-style, hiding cameras in trucks and disguising lighting rigs as streetlights. This approach gave the film a raw, documentary-like quality that polished Hollywood productions couldn't match. Wolfman Jack, the legendary DJ, initially refused to appear on screen, fearing it would ruin the mystique of his radio persona. But George Lucas wasn't having it. He wrote a scene where Richard Dreyfuss's character meets Wolfman Jack in person, and eventually Jack agreed. The scene became a pivotal moment in the film, shattering the illusion of the disembodied radio voice but preserving the magic of the man behind it. American Graffiti wasn't just a hit, it changed Hollywood forever. Despite the odds, it became a cultural phenomenon, making stars out of Lucas, Ford, Howard, and Dreyfuss, and influencing the way movies would be made for years to come. What started as a small, chaotic production turned into a timeless classic, reminding us all of the fleeting, wild days of youth.